Ramji, welcome back to the podcast.
Namaste. Masters are inspiration, not models. If you start mimicking them, you'll be lost forever. Poison and Amrita are same. How you take it, that's a different.
Mercury is supposed to be poisonous?
Yeah, but if it is treated well, it becomes Amrita. If you ask Tantra to derive an equation, Tantra will say C, consciousness, equals to energy, Ananda, equals to matter. That becomes Nada, Bindu and Kala, Shiva, Shakti and Prapancha. If you talk about Brahmananda as the Supreme, have you ever experienced Jagadananda, which is the worldly pleasure? Shankara was perplexed. He said no. Then she asked, if you didn't get a chance to enjoy that, how can you state Brahmananda is the highest joy? You cannot attain moksha when you're dead. It's not a certificate you get issued after your death. If you badmouth about another one, you're taking their karma. The more people get badmouthed, will fly high. Their karma is less. Shiva is called as Nada, sound, the first sonic vibration. He is also called as light, by which Tantra makes a point, sound and light are same. What is the present take of sound and light? Go to thermodynamics and all those things and you'll find they are talking in the same language of Mahamaheshwara Abhinava Guptacharya. Death is the biggest question. There's no answer. It's the question ever unanswered.
This podcast is the second episode in a 3-part series. Links to the first and third episodes can be found in the description below. So in today's podcast, we are back again with Dr. R. Ramanand. In the first episode, he spoke about different topics like the origin of Tantra, how the history of Bharat is connected to Tantra, and various other interesting topics. I highly recommend that you watch the first episode. And in today's episode, we'll be looking at many more interesting topics and also the questions that have come from you, those who have watched the first episode. And if you want to receive a special package of the best clips from podcast 1 and 2, we will send it directly to your WhatsApp. Simply message Tantra to this number and you will receive it. And you can keep in touch with us directly. So let's begin. Ramji, welcome back to the podcast.
Namaste.
Our viewers really loved the previous episode. And in today's podcast, we have so many questions and hopefully we'll be able to cover most of them. So let's dive in. So previously you mentioned about Atimarga and Mantramarga. We would love to know a little more about it. Can you elaborate?
So, I was talking about Atimarga, the transgressive path, if you translate it so. I don't know whether it is a correct translation, but normally it is used so. And the Mantramarga, the path of mantras. So, in the previous session, we were talking about how tantras from Bhairava to Bhairavi and to the lineage of masters came down. We were talking about Srikanda as an incarnation of Shiva taking form to illuminate, to re-illuminate or rekindle the spirit of Tantra in Kali Yuga. But when you look at Srikanda, we see there are 3 types of tantras illuminated. One is the Abheda Tantra, that is the Bhairava Tantras given to Trayambaka, and the Tantras which are of monodualistic nature, that is the Veda Tantra given to Srinatha, and the dualistic Tantras given to Amardaga, that is the Shiva Tantras. When you look at these 3 tantras, apart from their distinction as dualistic to non-dualistic or monodualistic and non-dualistic, these all are dealing with Shakti in one or other way. Even in Shaiva Siddhanta, Shakti plays a prominent role.
Okay.
But on the other hand, and it also involves with the worldly life. Even you are practicing Bhairava Tantra, monodualistic tantras or dualistic tantras, Veda tantras or Veda tantras, Shaiva Siddhantas or Bhairava tantras. You are in the worldly life. You are immersed in the world and you are doing your sadhana. But we were talking about Atimargis, who are out of the world. They don't follow the rules of the world, quite antinomian in nature. And they are leading a monastic life. We call it as Shaiva Sannyasa. Shaiva Sannyasa of the extreme end. It's very extreme. You might have seen enquiries and all in the present days. They are all the descendants of the Atimargis. So as Srikanda took form to illuminate Tantras, there was one more very important person. Although Abhinavagupta, Mahamaheshwara Abhinavagupta was a Mantramargi by himself, acknowledges this great master who propagated Atimarga. And he is called as Lakulisha, otherwise Nakulisha. Atimargis believe Lakulisha is eternal. He is still living. Like Babaji Mahavatar we talk about, right? So he initiates people into Atimarga, it is said that. So we get the references of Lakulisha from age-old texts such as Skanda Purana itself. So it is said that Lakulisha was born in Kayavatarana, Karwan, in the southernmost part, southwestern part of Gujarat. So Shiva descended as Lakulisha. In fact, the story is like that. Lakulisha was a Brahmin boy. When he passed away, Shiva descended into this corpse and took form of Lakulisha. And he was not wearing anything. Digambara. Kayavatarana is the place. And Lakulisha, the idea of the account of Lakulisha we gets from Pashupata Sutras and the commentary of Pashupata Sutras written by Kaundinya. So Lakulisha is in the human form, wearing nothing, smeared with crematorial ash, and as Ubhavita means the sacred thread, he wears the snake skin as the sacred thread. He will carry a skull in his hand and a club, and he is represented with an erected penis, erected linga. So when you go to the temples in South India, mostly in Karnataka, Andhra and all, he looks like Buddha or Mahavira. People will immediately make a conclusion that, oh, this temple is Buddhist or this temple is Jain. But if you look at the figurine closely, you can see an erected linga, and he will be holding a gada, a club in his hand. So the erected linga posture is very particular to Lakulisha, which signifies urdhvareta. Like we were talking about urdhvareta. They will not let the semen flow out. So it's kept inside for yogic powers, to attain yogic powers. Mm-hmm. So Nishwasa Tattva Samhita, Nishwasa Mukha is a preface to a very old text called Nishwasa Tattva Samhita, supposed to be a very old tantric text, which talks about different characteristics. Later when we look at how Shaiva Tantras split into different forms and all. But we find Lakulisha as a very influential figure in Indian history at all. Because once they had a huge control over kingdoms.
Okay.
Like, I think you might have watched this movie PS2, Ponniyin Selvan 2. You can see Kalamugas in that. Kalamugas belong to Atimargis. So in Atimargis we have Kapalikas, Lakulas. Lakulas are called as Mahavratis. Have taken the greater woe. The greater woe is holding the Kapala in the hand. Kapala means skull, human skull. So it is said that your master's skull belongs to you. Okay, when your master passes away, his skull is taken by the disciple.
So if there are multiple disciples,
No, the principal one will get it. That's it. But now the tradition is almost lost. I'm not telling it's not there, but it's almost lost. Gujarat was a very, very strong hold of Pashupatas, Lakulas, Kalamugas, like that. David Lawrenson has written a book on Kalamugas, a lost Shaiva sect, which talks in detail about the existence of Kalamugas in the southern part of India. You know the temple Somanatha. Somanatha belongs to Kapalikas. So who are Kapalikas? Kapalikas are the Shaiva ascetics who carry Kapala in their hand. Kapalikas has got a very wrong representation in Indian spiritual history. That is connected to the episode Ugra Bhairava, a Kapalika, had with Shankaracharya. You know the story? When Shankara, while his Digvijaya Yatra, was encountered by a Kapalika. So Kapalikas are notorious for the sacrificial ceremonies, human sacrifices and all. It is said. Maybe a misrepresentation in many other ways, but still. So Ugra Bhairava came to Shankara and asked him, I didn't get anyone to sacrifice today. So as you are a sannyasi, you don't have any value for your body. Something you don't have any value for is of high value for me. If you give it to me, I'll do the sacrifice and I'll get my things. This is the encounter between Kapalika and Shankaracharya. And the story says that later Kapalika was killed by his disciple Padmapada, who came in the form of Narasimha. There are certain stories like that. So that's why Kapalikas has got a very notorious representation in Indian spiritual history. But Kapalikas are not like that. They hold Kapala because their Lord Shiva always holds a Kapala in his hand. It is the Brahma Kapala. It is the skull of Brahma. So once there was the story is like that. Once there was a, not quarrel, it was a test in fact, a fight between Vishnu and Brahma upon seeing a linga, a huge linga, an Agni linga. So Brahma wanted to see the tip of it. Vishnu wanted to see the downmost tip of it. So Brahma took the form of a swan and flew up, and Vishnu took the form of a pig and went down, trying to find the ends. So it took yugas of flying, but Brahma couldn't reach. Vishnu also couldn't reach.
Okay.
But Brahma found another one in the midway, that was a flower. As a flower of a, jute.
Oh.
It was falling from the top because it was after the archana, after offering, it was coming down. So Brahma asked, I am pretty sure that I cannot reach the top of it, but you have to tell Vishnu that I have reached there. False witness. The first false witness in the history. And Brahma came back, Vishnu also came back. Vishnu told that I couldn't reach. It's down beneath, I cannot go. I don't know how much deep it is. Brahma said, but I could reach. He wanted to prove that he is superior. And this is the witness. And the flower said that, yeah, I have seen. Immediately Shiva appeared in front of them. He cursed the flower. Here afterwards, you will not be taken for my puja. So the flower of the jute is not taken for puja. And for telling lie, Shiva removed one head of Brahma. He plucked head of Brahma with this finger. That's why this finger is called as Anamika. All the fingers have name. This is from here to Angushta, Tarjani, Angushta, like that. All the fingers have name. But for this, there is no name. Anamika is nameless because of the sin. That's why when we do rituals, Hindus put a pavitra here
Okay.
to make it sacred. Otherwise, this is sinful. Because of Brahmahatya. Because of Brahmahatya, Shiva was also cursed. Shiva had to go through Mahavrata, penance, holding the Brahma Kapala as the alms bowl. Bhikshadana Murti, it is said that. Beggar Shiva. And he comes to Annapurna and he gets alms in the bowl. So Kapalikas are following the Bhikshadana of their Lord. And they smear with crematorial ashes. And they are very much into the Vedic Ekadasha Rudra tradition too. We cannot separate Veda and Tantra in that way. Because the 5 mantras, the Pancha mantras, representing each 5 faces of Shiva, Ishana, Tatpurisha, Ghora, Satyajata, Vamadeva, all these 5 faces have 5 mantras. These Kapalikas always chant these 5 mantras. This is the lifestyle of Kapalikas. How to understand a Kapalika? Their name will end with the suffix Soma. Deva Soma, Ratna Soma, Indu Soma, like that.
Aghoris also have this Kapalika.
Yeah, Aghoris also have. Because Aghoris are far distant relatives of Atimargis of this sort. I'll talk about Aghoris. So they will hold this Kapala. That's why they are called Soma. They are also called as Soma Siddhantins. Because their theory is Soma Siddhanta. So they will always hold this Kapala, and it is said that it is connected to moon. So that's why they are called as Soma Siddhantins. Otherwise, it is said that they drink the nectar from the cranium. That's why they are called Soma Siddhantis. Also, we can see they worship Shiva with Uma. Sa Uma becomes Soma. And Somnada was a temple dedicated to them. Somnada, the temple which was destroyed by Mahmud of Ghazni and was rebuilt after the independence. So the Somnada Linga, you heard about that? Somnada Linga used to float in air when Ghazni attacked. It was an architectural wonder. Because of the position of certain magnets inside, it used to float in air. Now we couldn't rebuild it in that form. And it was broken as part of his invasions. And pieces of it were taken. 16 pieces. It was broken into 16 pieces. And the 16 pieces were taken to Afghan, to Ghazni, and was placed on a mosque as an act of war against infidels. And when historians talk about it as just an economic thing, just to get wealth, he did that. There is no religious color to that. Romila Thapar has written a book on that, Somnada, A History of Many Voices, if I remember the name correctly, which talks about the controversial Somnada episode. And the claim goes like that.
That is incorrect.
That's incorrect. If it was only for wealth, why should he destroy the idol into 16 pieces and take it as a revenge and put it on the mosque? That was purely a case of war against infidels. Historians can distort facts, but memory of people will not go. Even after this much years, we are talking about it. You cannot change the emotions of that. And just my point is that Somnada is the principal deity worshipped there. And the temple and those compounds belong to this Pashupatas, Kapalikas. And Krishna, in fact, had a Kapalika orientation. I feel so. Because I went to Ujjain once. Krishna learned at Ujjain. You know? Yeah, Krishna learned at Ujjain. Sandipani Maharshi's ashram was at Ujjain. So, Lakulisha, after taking the form of, after getting incarnated, came to Ujjain to see Mahakala Bhairava. From there he got 4 disciples. Kushika, Karushya, Mitra, Garganesha, like that. They were sent to 4 different parts of the country to propagate Kapalika, Pashupata and the Lakula systems. These all are different, but the theory is all revolving around Pashupata Sutras. Then he came to Ujjain, and the principal Kushika, the principal follower, disciple of Lakulisha, decided to stay there. And Ujjain was a center of Lakula, Pashupata and all those. So Krishna, if you look at him, he wanted to move to Dwaraka in Gujarat from Mathura, Vrindavana, and he established his kingdom in the vicinity of Somanatha. And if you look at him, see the Sudarshan Chakra. I happened to read a book called Raseshwara Bhairava Tantra.
Okay.
Raseshwara Bhairava is Swachanda Bhairava, which is alchemy. Mercury, how to deal with Mercury is the content of that book. Raseshwara Bhairava. He is also called as Vyadhi Bhakshaga. Vyadhi Bhakshaga is the devourer of diseases. So in India, the foremost or the highest medicinal technique one doctor can imply is the art of using mercury on body, rasayana, which makes you diseaseless, even deathless.
Mercury is supposed to be poisonous?
Yeah, but if it is treated well, it becomes amrita. Poison and amrita are same. Like how you take it, that's a different. How you use it. So here, in this book, I've seen a reference of Pashupatastra. Pashupatastra, you know. The astra, the arrow, weapon given by Shiva. Pashupatastra. Arjuna was gifted with Pashupatastra. You remember the story in Mahabharata. Arjuna went to penance to get Pashupatastra. Shiva came in the form of a tribal leader and they had a fight. At the end, he recognized it as Shiva, and Arjuna was given with Pashupatastra. We always see warriors asking for different weapons from Shiva. Brahma, Vishnu and all. We might think that it's a blessing, but in fact it's not a blessing. In fact, it's not a boon showered upon them. It is a technology. They are imparting a technology. Imparting a technology in the sense they are giving, it's called as knowledge transfer in the present times. When some company acquires another company, there is a knowledge transfer, right? Yeah, this is the knowledge transfer. So the Pashupatastra is a knowledge which was given to Arjuna, how to use this weapon, how to make this weapon. And I saw the reference of Pashupatastra, how to make it, in this book, Raseshwara Bhairava Tantra. One chapter is on Pashupatastra. It is talking about using mercury in a particular form and making it work according to your mental commands. It is said that, even Kannada says, I think, somebody told me, I haven't read that, I don't have a primary reading on that, but still, one of my masters told me, Kannada was talking about, I'm quoting him. If you work with mercury, after a point of time, your mind will sync with mercury. Your mind will sync with mercury. Now we have reached at a place where we are trying to find the quantum particles. And most of them are acting weird. Like Einstein called spooky. About quantum entanglement. Einstein referred it as spooky. That they are acting spooky. There will be a point where the science will find this subatomic particles might sync with the observer.
Okay.
And if you look at the double slit experiment and all, we can find the clues of that. So Mercury, if treated in a particular form, will adhere to your commands. And Pashupatastra is a arrow made with Mercury, which means it obeys your mental commands. You know what is in the next chapter? It is Sudarshana Chakra. Sudarshana Chakra adheres to the mental commands of Krishna. There was an instance in Mahabharata where Shishupala denounces Krishna for his acts. You know that Krishna killed Shishupala. Shishupala was his direct cousin. And there were so many allegations against Krishna. In between he said, all of these Vrishnis, Kauravas, Pandavas, are afraid of you because of your chakra. Without your chakra, you are nothing. Anyone with a chakra can control these people. You don't act so smart here. The next action was Krishna just threw the Sudarshana Chakra to him and asked him to control it. If you want to control, he cannot, because it will not adhere the commands of Shishupala. So these techniques are very much connected to the earlier Kapalika practices, the mercurial operations, and all those things. So Mercury played a very important role in all these systems. So this is all about Atimargis. I'll just give another very important or interesting fact about the life of a Kapalika. Lakula, Mahavrati. There are 4 phases in his life. The first part is he will be serving as the priest of a Shiva temple. Will get immersed in Shiva worship and all. Definitely the priest of a Shiva temple, of a temple, will be a beloved one to everyone. Right? People will go to him for counsels. He'll be a very important person. And he'll play that all roles. The next stage is he'll leave the temple. He might wear something or might not. If he wears something, it will be all weathered clothes and he'll be putting ashes all over. And he'll act antisocial. Might throw bad words at people, misbehave to women, and all those things. And people will start talking bad about him. He was such a good person. Now what happened to him? He has turned to be an antisocial. He is a madman. He is a fraud. So many things, so many allegations can come. This is the karma exchange path. Whenever someone utters any bad word about him, his karma is removed. The practitioner's karma is removed. And he will try his maximum to make people talk bad about him.
He's doing it consciously.
Yeah. That's karma exchange. It is said that.
Is it relevant only in that situation, or is it relevant even in our day-to-day life?
In day-to-day life, it is very much relevant. If you badmouth about another one, you're taking their karma. The more people get badmouthed about them, will fly high. Their karma is less. Okay, so it's very motivational too, right? So we are all worried about what people talks about at and it's good, in fact. It's good. It's better than people who praises us. They're taking away our karma. This is said in there. In the third stage, he will move into a cave or some secluded place where he'll chant Shiva mantras only. He'll utter Shiva mantras only with his mouth. And in the 5th stage, he goes to a crematorium, waiting his death, smeared with ashes, chanting Shiva, or maybe in silence, and he attains his nirvana, and he becomes the ruler of a realm. There are realms in spiritual world, each ruled by different Rudras. So he becomes one of the Rudra, and he becomes the ruler of a realm. It is said like that. This is the life of a Kapalika. Okay, this is the Atimarga path. So the next path is Mantramarga. So Mantramarga is a second stream, which is mostly oriented towards the world. In Mantramarga, it's a path of mantras, where Shiva Shasanas. This is the split of Shiva Shasanas into Atimarga and Mantramarga. So in Mantramarga, we can see there are two distinctions: the Shaiva Siddhanta and the Bhairava Tantras. Bhairava Tantras are 64 in numbers. Shaiva Siddhanta comprises of Veda and Veda. Together makes 28 Tantras. Kamika, Yogaja, Chandrahasa, there are certain Tantric texts. The Bhairava Tantras has split into three: Amradeshwara Pedam, Mandra Pedam, and Vidya Pedam. Amradeshwara Pedam was a very popular culture in Kashmir once. Amradeshwara Bhairava and his consort Amrita Lakshmi. Shiva with his 4 hands holding pots of nectar. And he is the one who charges our alphabets from A to Ksha. So in Kashmir Shaivite tradition, A to A are called as Amradeshwara Bijas. A, E, E. So they are 16. These 16 letters comprises the body of Amradeshwara. That was a very popular cult in Kashmir once. Netra Tantra is a very important text of Amradeshwara Bhairava tradition. There are Amradeshwara Bhairava Puja Paddhati and all. Netra Tantra is the eye of third eye. I mean the science of third eye, the text of third eye, Tantra of third eye. So Amradeshwara Bhairava is the god of third eye. So if you want to invoke your third eye and all, you have to go to Amradeshwara path. That's it. And it has a spiritual meaning also, apart from the mundane, what I said just now. And the Mantrapida, the principal deity of Mantrapida is Swachanda Bhairava and his consort Aghoreshwari. She is also called as Sagala Bhattarika. Swachanda Bhairava is also called as Aghoreshwara or Vyadhi Bhakshaka. In Nepal, he is called as Vyadhi Bhakshaka. So that is the the Swachanda Bhairavas with Mantrapidam. Swachanda Bhairava Tantra is a very important text in Mantrapida tradition. And another one is Vidyapida. In Vidyapida, we find Yogini references coming. There are 64 Yoginis, Yoginis are adapted females. So they belongs to the Vidyapida tradition. Vidyapida again split into 3. Yamala Tantras, Vama Tantras, and Shakti Tantras. In Yamala Tantras, we have different Yamalas. Skanda Yamala, Uma Yamala, Vishnu Yamala, Rudra Yamala, certain texts rather. In Rudra Yamala Tantra, we find Vijnan Bhairava Tantra. Vijnan Bhairava Tantra is a part of Rudra Yamala Tantra. So these are the Yamala Tantras. And in Vama Tantras, we have some texts and traditions. One is Tumburu Bhairavas, which I mentioned sometime before. The Tumburu Bhairava holding a Tumburu, a Veena with him, the Veena Shika Tantra is a Vama Tantra. Jaitrada Yamala or Shiracheta Tantra is another one. Mahasammohana Tantra is another one. These are the texts in Vama Tantra. There are some more. And Shakti Tantras are the next one, which entirely deals with Shakti as the primal idea. Shakti Tantra split into two, Kula and Kali. In Kula, which deals with the Kula Marga, Kaula, it again has four distinctions. That is the northern transmission of Kula Marga, that is called as the Kali Kula, which I talked about sometime before, which also encompasses Krama systems. And the eastern transmission, which is called as Purvamnaya, the northern is called as Uttaramnaya or the Kali Kula. There, the goddess is in the form of Kaleshwari and God is in the form of Kaleshwara. In the Purvamnaya, in the eastern transmission, she takes the form of Kuleshwari and he is in the form of Kuleshwara. And in the southern Amnaya, Dakshina Amnaya, it is said that she takes the form of Srividya or Kameshwari and she is with Kameshwara. And in the western transmission, she is called as Kubjiga or Vakreshwari because she is the coiled one, Kundalini, and she is with Navatma Bhairava. So Navatma Bhairava, Vakreshwari or Vakreshwari, Vakreshwara, Kuleshwari, Kuleshwara, Kameshwari, Kameshwara, Kaleshwari, Kaleshwara. This is the four transmissions of Tantra. And the Kali Tantras, which I mentioned some time back, in Kali Tantras, it has again distinction as Matakrama, Guhya Kali Krama, like that. So which is very popular in Nepal, Siddhalakshmi, Guhya Kali and all those traditions. This is the larger map of Shiva Tantra corpus.
Okay. So you mentioned a little bit about Adi Shankaracharya. I've heard some of the tantrics speak that they do not agree to his ideas or his teachings. But at the same time, if you look into some of his practices, they were tantric in nature. So what is your perspective on that?
It's a very controversial topic because Vedantis are not ready to give up on Shankara. Tantrics at the same time, there are differences of opinion among Tantrics. Some revere him a lot, some does not. That's there. But for me, Adi Shankaracharya was a point, it was a melting point. Both Tantra and Vedanta merged in one way. Because if you look at the Vedanta, which belongs to the Darshanas, Shad Darshanas basically, Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Uttaramimamsa, Purvamimamsa, Purvamimamsa, Uttaramimamsa. So in Uttaramimamsa, you find Upanishads. And the Vedantic thought has its base in the Uttaramimamsa. And the text by Badarayana Vyasa. That is the Brahma Sutra. So what Acharya Swamigal, Shankaracharya, did was to write a commentary on Brahma Sutra. So in Uttaramimamsa, we find the Brahma Kalpana, the idea of Brahma. Even the Brahma Sutra starts like Yathato Brahma Jitnyasa. Let's start discussing on Brahma. We are curious about Brahma, so let us start. Atato Brahma Jitnyasa. That's how it starts. It talks about Brahma in great detail and all, but is not mentioning or talking about the feminine perspective of it. But when Shankara came into the picture, especially looking at his tradition, the lineage from which he got initiated was from Gaudapata, Govindacharya and Shankara, Bhagavatpada. So that is the lineage of his Guru Parampara. That is the Guru Parampara lineage. Shankara is talking about Maya in great detail. Definitely it is far different from Tantric perspective of Maya, but still he got a feminine thing into that. Otherwise it could have been a different name. And he is talking in great detail about Maya and how the Maya plays a role in creating the illusion of Prabanja. He calls it as Vaivartavada. It is called a Vivartavada. Brahma is the real and Prabanja is the illusory representation. And the illusion is created by Maya. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Until him, we cannot find the role of Maya is defined in Vedanta like that. In this manner. So what Shankara did was, to me, is merging the ideas of Tantra with Vedanta. Vedantists might disagree with me. But still, when you look at Shankara, look at the story of Shankara Digvijaya. He defeated almost all the philosophies, traditions, schools of thoughts in India. That's why it is called as Shankara Digvijaya. He defeated Buddhists, he defeated Jains, he defeated Sankhyas, he defeated Yogis, he defeated Nyayas, Vaisheshik, everyone. And he had to deal with the Purva Mimamsa. The first part of Mimamsa. That is the Purva Mimamsa. They are Karma Kandis. And he went to Mandana Misra for the debate. Mandana Misra was a very age-old scholar. He was supposed to be the last word in Purva Mimamsa, in Karma Kanda. And they had a fight. The debate. It extended for weeks and months, it says. And at the end, Mandana Misra was defeated. Before starting the debate, there was a condition. Mandana Misra actually set the condition. He said that if you get defeated in this, you renounce your renunciate state and go back to family life. Get married and lead a good life as Vedas says. Do Garhastya. You're very young. You're wasting your time. Shankara agreed to that. And Mandana Misra said, and if I get defeated, I will take your path. I lead a life of a renunciate. Shankara agreed. Finally, Mandana Misra was defeated. He took the life of a renunciate. He had his wife named Udaya Bharadhi. Shankara asked her, aren't you joining me? She said, no. My husband is defeated. That doesn't mean I am defeated. You have to defeat me. Debate with me. And the most perplexing question was asked by her to a Vedanti. Any Vedanti will get perplexed if he encounters this question. If he is a real Vedanti who has renounced the life. She asked, if you talk about Brahmananda as the supreme, the pure bliss is the bliss of Brahma, the Brahmajnana. The Akhanda Anubhuti is that. Have you ever experienced Jagadananda, which is the worldly pleasure, particularly the Maithuna with a woman? Did you enjoy it? Sexual joy. Shankara was perplexed. He said no. Then she asked, if you didn't get a chance to enjoy that, how can you state Brahmananda is the highest joy? If you have experienced it before, you can easily make a distinction between these two. As of now, you haven't. Shankara told her, give me time, come back. He was a yogi. He left his body. He entered into the body of a king named Amaruka. And he enjoyed the worldly pleasure. Came back. He understood worldly pleasure is much, much below Brahmananda. But by the time Udayabharati left her body. And I find this is a very important juncture in the history of Advaita Vedanta itself, where the principles of Kaula is taken into account. Principles of the Mantramarga is taken into account. First time in the history of Vedanta. Because Shankara had to do this to understand. People might have disagreement about this. They say that Shankara didn't do that. That's a different thing. I'm just going by the lore. But the same Shankara wrote Saundarya Lahari, which starts with Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavedam. Without Shiva and Shakti. Without Shakti, Shiva cannot move. That's the principle again. He is Ashaktan. He is incapable of moving. Naspanditumapi. He is unskillful to make a throb without Shakti. And the same Shankara established 4 matas in 4 corners of this country. And he asked them to do Sri Chakra Puja. And Sharada is worshipped. So where do you find this distinction of a Vedanti and a Tantric? People might think some Tantrics are there who considers this as an act of hypocrisy. But for me, this is an act of blending 2 wonderful philosophies of India. Only great people can do that. For of this very reason, I am a huge fan of Shankaracharya. Unlike other Tantrics. Normally, Tantrics kind of have a different understanding and perspective about Shankara. I too had. But if you look at this, you find Shankara as a very important person in the history of Tantra also. And also one more thing. Why Shankara did this? What made him do this? What was his orientation? He did it by himself? Or was he counseled by anyone else? Then we have to look back to his Guru Parambara. That is Govindacharya and Gaudapata. Gaudapatacharya has written prominent text in Tantra. Also he was into alchemy. Mercury. Anyone who deals with alchemy is a Tantric. In one or other way, he is applying the principles of Tantra. That's how Siddhas, Nadas are all following some principles of Tantra in doing that. So without the principles of Tantra, you cannot deal with alchemy.
Can you give us a few differences between Vedanta and Tantra?
Yeah. Both are spiritual paths. That's the only similarity. In Vedanta, you talk about Brahma. The Brahman, it is said that. It is the absolute. Which is, in fact, Gunadita or Nirguna. Which does not have any quality. Which is not into the creation of the world or anything. Which is a static thing. Which is Nirguna Parabrahma. What we see as world is the representation, illusory representation, vivarta, caused by Maya. And that is avidya. But when you look at the absolute in Tantra, we call it as Parasamvit, which is not Nirguna, which is off with all the qualities. Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti Sampurnam. Which is all willful, all knowing and all powerful. And which is consciousness itself. Chaitanyam. And there is a splendor of consciousness that is Anandam, bliss. Otherwise Shakti. And moksha. So this is a principal distinction between Vedanta and Tantra when it comes to the Supreme. They are not the same. People will say, oh, even if it is Vedanta or it is Tantra, we are all praying to Brahma. We are all not praying to Brahma. We are all trying to reach at Brahma. No. The Brahma in Vedanta and Brahma in the Parasamvit in Tantra are different. We can draw parallels. That's another thing. If you want to find parallels between both, there are many. But if you look at the philosophy very particularly, you'll understand there is a staunch difference between both of these philosophies. When it comes to the soteriology, which means the idea of liberation, theory of liberation, that is also different. Getting merged to the Parabrahma is the sole aim of Vedanta. So he removes Maya and he understands he is Chidananda Rupa Brahman and he gets merged into that, which is the end of life and birth cycle. And it happens in a later time. But in Tantra, the idea of moksha is moha kshaya. Moha is Maya. Maya is the limitation. And it is Jivan Mukti. You cannot attain moksha when you are dead, after you are dead. It's not a certificate you get issued after your death. Moksha will be delivered. For moksha we call as deliverance, right? It's also called as deliverance. The deliverance is delivered during the lifetime itself. So Tantrika is a Jivan Mukta.
Okay.
That's what I was making the point of being in the water but not get stick by. Yeah. The example of lotus leaf. That's the Tantric way of life. So there are differences in that. And also, there is one fundamental difference. Tantra is a Parinamavada. It's an evolution theory. So, Kama yadi bahusyam prajayate. Shakta Tantra. When it comes to Shaiva Tantra, we can see the Bimba Pratibimba Vada. Bimba Pratibimba Vada is reality and the reflection. Shiva is the reality and Prabanja is the reflection on which Shiva is reflecting on the Vimarsha, on the mirror. Shakti is the mirror in which Shiva is reflected. In Vedanta, it is Prapancha, which is Vivarta, which is created out of ignorance. And it's a mental illusion. And it is giving an example, an analogy of snake and rope. It's a very famous analogy. Snake and rope analogy. It is called as Raju Sarpavada. In the dark, you mistake the rope for snake. When light comes, you understand it's not snake, but only a rope. Vedanta parallels it with the Vivartavada. Here the rope is Brahma. That's the real thing. Darkness is ignorance, avidya, maya, which gives you the false knowledge. Because of that, you are seeing snake. And snake, which is not present there, is attributed on the real rope. So an unreal thing, because of darkness, is attributed on a rope. When the Shuddha Vidya comes, the real knowledge comes, the unreal thing is no more existing, only Brahma, the rope, exists. This is the analogy. Tantric questions this analogy. This analogy is questioned by Tantrics like this. Tantra asks a very pertinent question, that is, it is not true to attribute there is an unreal snake existing there. The snake is real. You have seen snake before. That's why you are attributing the previously seen image of a snake to this rope. In the physical form, the snake is not existing. But inside your mental, as a mental impression, the impression of a snake is existing. So the snake is real itself. Yes, it is correct, the snake is not there. But there the impression of the snake is real. And you are attributing that impression on the rope. If this is the case, they will also agree, yeah, there is a impression of snake. We have seen snake before. Tantra asks this question. If the Jagat, the universe is unreal, you haven't seen it before. You cannot see an unreal thing. Can you see an unreal thing? No. If the Jagat is unreal, there's no chance of seeing the Jagat before. So that there will be no mental impression of the Jagat. If there is no mental impression of the Jagat inside your brain, inside you, how are you attributing the impression of unreal Jagat to the real Brahma?
But everything is not about seeing. I can experience the Jagat.
If you have experienced it, it is real. It is very much real as Brahma. An unreal thing you cannot experience. So this is a very age-old debate going on. Vedantis have their own answer, logic and answers for this, but Tantrics have their own answer. The people who wants to follow Vedanta find their answer convincing. The people who wants to follow Tantra finds their answer unconvincing. So that's the difference. So the debate continues. So we are in distinct paths. But at the juncture we find Adi Shankara. Yeah.
So do you recommend our viewers any book that they can read and practice, or maybe know more about the topics that you spoke about?
The topics which I spoke about are from different sources. From my masters, from the books I've read, from my experience. So I've combined these all things and I'm writing a book called the Shiva Code, which might release very soon, I don't know. I'm still writing it. This is the first English book I'm writing on. Mostly they are in Malayalam. So this is the first time I'm writing in English. So I think most of the topics I've talked here are covered in the books, the coming book. So I'll let you know when it comes out.
Yeah, I think it will be very interesting for people to know more about the amazing topics that you spoke about.
Thank you so much, Ramji. This talk was very interesting and I learned so much from it.
Me too.
Because of the clarity and the in-depth knowledge that you have, I'm sure there were so many more topics that we can dive into and learn from you. So thank you once again so much for your time.
And we hope to see you again.
Namaskaram.
Thank you. Namaste.
This podcast is the second episode in a 3-part series. Links to the first and third episodes can be found in the description below. And if you want to receive a special package of the best clips from podcast 1 and 2, we will send it directly to your WhatsApp. Simply message Tantra to this number and you will receive it. And you can keep in touch with us directly. And don't forget to follow Social Vaani for more such videos.